So you're getting ready to start a brand new church job search. What are some things that you should consider actually before you start your search? Let's talk about those things. Hi there, my name is Todd Rhoades. I'm one of the co-founders at chemistrystaffing.com. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about some things you should consider if you're getting ready to start a job search. Maybe some things you should consider even before you start your job search. When it's time to start looking for a new ministry job, maybe you just lost your church job, or maybe you just kind of feel like maybe you're in a great spot at a great church, but you feel like God's kind of telling you that it's time in your future to move on. So you're getting ready to start a job search. One of the first things that everybody does is they kind of slap a resume together and just start sending that out willy-nilly to churches. But I really think if you're going to do this thing right, and I know you want to do it right, there are some things that you should really do before you start your search. Okay. So the first thing that I would suggest that you do, and we tell candidates this all the time, before you start your search, you should just breathe. Okay? Just take a deep breath. This is a stressful time. If you're feeling like God is transitioning you or has transitioned, you're at the beginning, or you're kind of forced into this thing, just breathe. Okay? Just realize that this might be a surprise to you. It might be a surprise to your family. It might be you might feel really uncomfortable because you're being put into a position maybe you weren't expecting or aren't looking forward to. So just breathe. Realize that you're not the first one to go through this. You're not the first one, and it's probably maybe not the first time that you've been through a ministry transition in your own career. So you maybe, if you've been through it before, you know a little bit about what you're going to face here in the future. But just realize that, look, this isn't a surprise to God. And while it may be stressful, it is manageable, and there is support, including here on this channel. Matter of fact, if you are interested in more videos like this that will help you through your job search, just ask you to hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that notification bell, and that will help you to connect with us and get some support for your search during your search right here with these videos on our YouTube channel. So again, just take some time to breathe and realize that you're not the only one that's been through this, and it will be stressful, but it's manageable. Okay. Let me say a word if you haven't already left. Okay, so if you're starting your job search, you haven't already left, leave well. Leave well. Don't burn bridges. You never know when your paths will cross again. I've got some stories in my own past about that where I didn't burn bridges, and I was glad I didn't, because those paths do cross. It's a small world sometimes. So leave well. Ask for an exit interview if you can. Particularly if you have some things to share with leadership that could be helpful to the next person in your role, or just the helpful in the church. So, all right. So you've taken some time to breathe. While you're taking time to breathe, my bullet point here on my notes says, pray, pray, pray. And it seems like just kind of the Christian thing to say is you need to pray when you start your search. But you really do. This is the time. As we said, it can be stressful. This is the time. This is a time where you really need to lean in. You really need to pray. You really need to pray hard. Pray hard for the position that you're leaving, and the people that you're leaving, and the folks that you love, and the church that you love. It's going to be hard on them, but also pray for you and for your family and for your future church. You're just starting your search, so you don't know where that church is. You don't know who those people are. You don't know who your next ministry leader and your next church is going to be. So there's a lot to pray for. And if you try to do this under your own power, it's going to be even more stressful than what it will be if you just take the time to pray and to breathe. Okay, so one other thing that I always encourage everyone before they start their job search, whenever you're in a time of transition, this is a great time for you to revisit your calling. It's a great time to do it. And you need to be asking yourself, it's kind of retrospective. At least whenever I changed ministry roles, it was always kind of retrospective for me, looking at my last ministry role. What did I like? What did I didn't like about the role, about the church, about the community, all those things. And it's a good time to ask yourself and to continue to pray through your calling. I mean, is your calling as red hot as it was when you took your last role? Has your calling changed? This is a good time to know, to pray through and to really consider, is what I've been doing in my last ministry role what I want to be doing, or what I feel God is calling me to in this next chapter? And if not, what's different? What is God leading me to do? How has God changed my calling, if at all? So, and a lot of people have done this, particularly coming out of the COVID and the pandemic, is a lot of people have revisited their calling. And some people have just determined, at least for a season, that maybe ministry isn't their calling, or working in the church isn't their calling. I'm not encouraging you to come to that conclusion by any means, but this is the time to really, as you look to transition, before you start that search for your next church job, you need to make sure that you revisit that calling and make sure that God has called you for this next chapter. Do you feel like He's calling you into another church ministry role? And then once you've done that, you really need to come up with a plan. That sounds really sensible, doesn't it? But so many people, when they start a ministry job search, just like I said, they whip together a resume and they start sending it out. But there's no plan. There's no solid idea behind it. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, and there will be some videos, I'm going to record some videos here as well that will help you to come up with your plan before you actually start your search. But let me just go over a few of the things that you really need to consider. You need to consider and determine what we call your non-negotiables. Okay, if you realize that too broad of a search, too broad of a focus is going to set you up for a potential misfit in your next church or your next ministry. So, in other words, if you're looking anywhere and everywhere, at all kinds of churches, all size churches, all locations, all theological backgrounds, all tribes, if you open yourself up to all of those and just start kind of willy-nilly sending out your resume to everyone, there's a good chance you're going to get sucked into a church and to a role and to an offer that is not a good fit for you. So narrow your focus. And when you narrow your focus, and this is the time to do it before you actually start sending out your resumes and before you actually start your search, when you narrow your focus, it will increase the difficulty of your search. But, why I say it'll increase the difficulty, it will increase the difficulty of finding churches that you feel are a good match for you. But that's really what the plan is for. That's really what the plan is going to help you to do. So, determine your non-negotiables. I've got, I think, 5 areas here that I want you to consider before you start your search for your negotiables. Geographical area is number 1. Are you open to go anywhere? Do you need to be in a certain geographical region? Maybe a lot of times we hear candidates have maybe aging parents, so that they want to be back closer so that they can care for their aging parent. Take that into consideration. Maybe you're a young family, you've got young kids and you want to be back closer to grandparents. Take that into consideration. But as you reconsider your calling and what God has for you in your next chapter, one of your non-negotiables you have to determine is geography. And it could be nationwide. It could be, hey, I really need to be, for this next season, this next chapter, I need to be in this specific area. So get out a piece of paper, write these things down, your non-negotiables. Where do I want to be? Where do I not want to be geographically? Second of all, financially. where do you need to be financially? We all have a budget, hopefully, and we all have areas that we really need to make sure that we have kind of this level of income. Know that before you start your search, because if you don't know that beforehand, that can really get you in trouble when you fall in love with a church and then find out that it's going to be a real struggle for you financially. So every church, every location pays differently, and the cost of living is different everywhere. So you'll have to have a little bit of give, uh, and adjusting. But you need to know, what are your bills? What are your debts? Do you have student loans that you need to pay off? All those kind of things are just one of those things that you need to look at when it comes to non-negotiables, when it comes financially. Okay, what do you need? What are your non-negotiables for your family? What is best for your family? What do you need for your family? For example, and this can also go into geographical as well. Some of these kind of meld together, but so if we've had a good number of candidates that have either a spouse or son or daughter that maybe has certain medical needs, so they need to be kind of close to a certain type of hospital. That's all. Those kind of things are things that you would consider kind of your non-negotiables that you need to put on your list. Hey, I'm looking for a church that's within 50 miles of this kind of a hospital or something like that. So what are the needs of your family, and what do you need to prepare and write down in your plan as a non-negotiable for your family? Some other non-negotiables: church size or church denomination. What kind of church are you looking for? Those are very important. So, if you would really like to be in a large church, that's fine. If you'd really like to be in a small church, that's fine. You know where you're going to be the best fit. So rather than trying to put the round peg in the square hole, determine kind of in your mind what your non-negotiable is for the type of church, and also church culture. What kind of church culture do you need? So part of that is community, but part of that is just church. It's worship style. It's philosophy of ministry. It's all those things. What kind of a church do you feel like you're going to be a best fit in, even theologically or culture-wise, and write that into your plan so that you're pretty laser focused in what you're actually looking for. And then the last thing I want to say here as kind of laying the foundation for your search, or getting ready before you actually start sending out those resumes, is make sure that your spouse is on board. If you're married, make sure that your spouse is on board. You really need to journey this together. You really need to journey this together. So, where does your wife want to be? Where does your wife feel like she is called as well? Your partnership, God has called you, but she has to buy into that vision as well. That's why you need to journey it together. How's your wife doing? Particularly if your husband, particularly if you're coming off of a tough season or coming out of an unhealthy church. How are you doing spiritually? How are you doing emotionally? How are you doing physically? But almost as important, and sometimes we just need to look at our spouse and say, how are you doing? Are you healthy enough? Am I healthy enough to kind of move forward with a brand new search? Those are all things that you need to consider. And again, the best thing you can do to have a really successful search is to plan ahead. If you don't plan, there's a good chance. Here's what happens when you don't plan. You end up taking whatever comes your way, and it might not be a good fit for you. And here's what happens if it's not a good fit. And I don't want this for you or your family. If you take something that you've not planned for and something that's not a good fit, chances are 18 to 36 months, you're going to be doing this whole thing again. We talk to candidates all the time that found themselves kind of taking something that either they knew wasn't right, or when they got there, they just thought, this isn't, I'm not a good fit here. And 18 to 36 months, they're calling us again saying, we really need to find a good place where we can put down roots and some place that we really fit for the long term. Part of that, there's no guarantees, but part of that is making sure that you do the work ahead of time to start your search with a great plan. I would love to hear from you and hear your comments. Leave comments below if you have kind of any comments as far as or questions in particular about what do I do here? I mean, what do I need to plan for? Ask those questions here. I will answer every one that comes in. And I appreciate, again, hit subscribe if this is the type of content that is helpful to you as a church leader or as you start your next search process.